I think that like whole life insurance policy is good if you are investing and you want like a separate tax strategy, which I know we're not supposed to lump those two together.
No, I get it.
But term life insurance, I feel like, is more so if you're working, if you unexpectedly die, but you're working a 9 to 5, you're not really interested in investing a lot of money. Like you just, it's insurance, because I feel like whole life insurance would be more so for investing, and then term would be just insurance.
I heavily recommend consulting with your financial advisor. Around all these topics is not meant as advice in any way, shape, or form. This is my disclaimers.
And this is a question that has been controversial. Term life or whole life?
I think binary choices are for computers.
I love that response. That is the next quote. I think binary choices are for computers. Absolutely, ladies and gentlemen. There we go.
Because obviously I have a whole life insurance policy. It's been this argument, like, and it's always, should I get term? Should I get whole?
It's the wrong question.
What's the question?
What's the correct question?
The first question, because the answer's in the product. The very first question is, how much are you going to need to replace income-wise to those you care about if you pass away?
Mm-hmm. Right.
What's the death benefit?
Mm-hmm.
You know, the quick answer is, if you have a significant other, kids, it's going to be about 10 to 15 times what you make in a year.
Okay.
I think the solution, first of all, I think term is simplistic too, because term insurance, people, even if they say, well, I'm a term person.
Yeah.
I usually find that their term insurance planning is messed up, because they said, okay, well, I make $300,000 a year, I'm going to buy a $3 million policy, or $50,000, I'm going to buy a $500,000 policy.
Okay.
I got a kid, I'm married again, so I got a kid who's 5, I got a kid who's 14, 16, and 22. So what you need to be thinking about, though, is, okay, well, the ages of those children, when they get to age 22, you may not need as much coverage. So as children graduate, you're going to be able to shave off between $100,000 and $250,000 minimum per child moving into adulthood. So wouldn't it make sense, if you're going to have to make that adjustment, like, let's say you're doing a $3 million policy and you got 3 kids, and we'll say you're not married and you don't give a shit about leaving anything to them once they graduate, just for simplicity, right? As they turn 22, you should have 25-year policy, a 20-year policy, and a 15. That way the policies naturally just sunset on their own. And if you don't have an active financial advisor who's auditing your insurance planning, because term life, like, you're only saving money if you actually need the coverage for that period of time. You're paying more for longer periods of coverage. So make your plan foolproof. Just say, okay, I'm just going to structure it so it's target dating these things. Same thing with like businesses, right? Like, you're on a 10-year business repayment. Well, you should take out a 10-year term, and you should probably have a 15 and a 20 for your personal stuff, but this one's just for 10. So that way you're kind of making it simple. And if you decide to move any of the term to permanent, because most term is convertible, you can change it in part or in whole.
Is this at any time? At this point, you're instructing me, because I have term insurance, and I'm
so like well, let's take so you have a 20-year?
Yeah.
Okay. So for 20-year policies, depending on the company, you can change that over in part or whole to whole life, usually
at any time,
depending on the company.
Okay.
At minimum, you're going to get 10 years. Yeah, you can do it for 10 years up to 20 years. There's like 3 carriers that'll do it for the entire contract. So
when would you make that decision to change over to whole life?
So structurally, depending on your career, if it's in, like, let's assume you're just a W-2 employee, but we can get into business owners later, because we're going to talk about bank on yourself, and that'll be a non-qualified deferred comp too. We should touch on that. This is going to be the nerdiest podcast ever.
I love it. I don't care if anybody else doesn't. I'm over here
like it's just like it's just edification.
Like, thank you.
I know. I'm like, I got Fed Irish whiskey and gonna talk nerd.
I know. I should have got more. I have Crown.
You got Crown. That was my dad's fastball for years.
Okay.
So he's a minister, so I don't. If any parishioners around. I mean, not anymore. Back in his sinner days.
Listen to the first podcast that Devin did, and you can hear all
God
about
accepts
it.
everyone, okay?
You know what? We can come back to it. I brought that Martin Luther King Jr. thing up to my mother-in-law.
Oh.
Because she was like, this is a total
Wait,
aside.
hold on. Y'all have to educate the people who didn't listen to the last one.
Okay, so I was recently...
Tell me what the Martin Luther King thing is, please.
And we can go down a rabbit hole with this.
We could. We're not on infinite banking in any way, shape, or form.
I don't know. We were on a term in whole life, and
Devin, I want to know how to buy real estate with the life insurance policy.
Okay,
that's what I'm trying to hear.
I'm also interested in the fact of when you were talking about life insurance, you only mentioned for death, and then obviously you just brought up using it for real estate. So I kind of just want to dive into that.
That has to be the primary driver.
Okay, the primary driver has to be for death.
If there is not any type of need, I philosophically struggle with it. Now, I think that can mean a lot of different things. It doesn't mean you're married. It doesn't mean you have kids. Who are you going to leave it to? Are you trying to offset estate taxes? Is this nieces, nephews? Are you trying to leave it to a church or a mosque or wherever you're trying to leave it? But there needs to be a real reason, because like life insurance can have some really impactful tax advantages, but it also has an underlying insurance cost to it. So if we don't need to absorb a cost, there's no reason to overcome it. And you can overcome it depending on how you're going to fund it. But if you don't have a need for it, then why the hell are we doing it?
Yeah, and that's something that I was talking about too with one of my friends. I'm like, I think that, and you can tell me how you feel about this. I think that like whole life insurance policy is good if you are investing and you want like a separate tax strategy, which I know we're not supposed to lump those two together.
No, I get it.
But term life insurance, I feel like is more so if you're working. If you unexpectedly die, but you're working the 9 to 5, you're not really interested in investing a lot of money, like it's just a separate form of it's insurance, because I feel like whole life insurance would be more so for investing, also with life insurance, and then term would be just insurance. Not use it as tax strategy. I agree.
You could make a compelling argument for doing like bond laddering strategies or cash side accounts, but in the way of life insurance, absolutely, and that depends on its structure. Mm-hmm. And the other reason I said, binary answers are for computers is because, like, why does no one talk about the fact that we can blend these two structures to maximize the death benefit? Because, like, what happens is, like, life insurance, you're typically going to pay on a whole life product until you're either 65 at the earliest. I mean, by a basic contract. We're talking like you just went, you bought it, the guy didn't know anything, and there's no fanciness to it. Usually contractually you pay till age 65 or 121, 125 years old. We can talk about.
Ain't nobody living.
Why the difference? Why the contrast in the 65 and 121?
Why do you have a 10-year mortgage or a 30-year?
Okay.
It's just compressing. And real tax-wise, real estate and life insurance are going to be almost identical. They're both going to be first in, first out, FIFO.
Okay.
So it is very similar, except instead of having like a 10-year option on the mortgage, life insurance, the fastest you can really, quote unquote, pay it off, to kind of continue the analogy, is technically 7 years.
Okay.
If you do it faster than 7 years, and there's so many nuances to this. So I heavily recommend consulting with your financial advisor and talking with the fiduciary around all these topics. Is not meant as advice in any way, shape, or form. This is my disclaimers. This is
have
not
to
advice.
Give it.
Yeah, like
for the record, because I'm on my live too.
Yeah, exactly.
I am not a financial advisor. Please see a financial advisor.
I say that before every video. Questions. Please consult a financial advisor before you make any investment.
Y'all know I get budgeting advice. That is what I'm here for.
Yeah.
Yeah, and honestly, like, you DM me. I'm sure Bree can put my contact info in there. Feel free to reach out. I
don't be giving out my resources to everybody. So
the good news is I'm part of a team that manages like 1.2 billion.
God damn! Wait a minute. Hold on. Hold on. Let's put a pin in that.
I don't personally.
The
team.
Wow.
So we have, just our back office is, it's 5 or 6 people that make the world go round. So it's not, thankfully if it was just me, it would be a total shit show. Because like I know all this stuff, but it's like you give me the paperwork and it's like I'm like, it's literally like to open a simple IRA.
So neither of y'all, this couch is looking like people who just are here living in this world. Okay, y'all are innovators.
We have the ideas,
but the paperwork is just.
If you look at business owners and salespeople, they're not wired for paperwork. Like they're the worst ever. I mean,
so am I in the wrong lane? Like,
no, you are in your right lane.
Okay, listen,
because you do the paperwork.
I do
all the paperwork. Follow up. Yes, She helped us with production, everything.
If it was not for people like that on my team, approximately
nothing would get done.
I'll be generous and round up, like 33% of the cases would get done because I just wouldn't have the bandwidth.
Yeah.
But on life insurance, the whole calculation of how fast you can pay it off. So like when you were asking, well, what's the difference between 65 and 21? And it's like, well, yeah, it's a mortgage. But the calculation of how that happens is a contract in life insurance is considered complete when the cash value is tantamount or equal to the death benefit, when the two meet. Right? This, until they meet, when the cash value is down here and the death benefit's up here, until these meet, this is called the corridor. The speed at which the corridor shuts is what defines a modified endowment contract or a MEC. If it has too much cash put into it within a 7-year period, it becomes a modified endowment contract and all the cash value becomes taxable at 50%.
So you gotta be very cautious of what you put in there.
Especially in a rising interest rate environment. When interest rates were very low and they were headed down, right? Life insurance is primarily based on long-term interest rates. So that's what you have to pay attention to the most. So if we see a hyper increase in interest rates, which Powell's ridiculous, doing this 25 basis, like it's great for homeowners and y'all should look at that. But what they're doing with interest rates cuts is absolutely ignoring the fact that we're already in a recession.
Yeah.
I don't understand what we're doing with this. But I don't like the Federal Reserve at all. So anyway, I digress. But you can actually blend term and whole life, because if you're trying to shove a very large amount of cash into a policy, and for reference, these policies, you need to be able to put at minimum 10 and ideally more like 15 grand a year into. So if you're not really
both term and whole,
well, you can blend them, because what you're doing if you do that is the term insurance is going to automatically convert. It's think of it as like you basically build a lease to own.
Okay.
And then if you're aggressively paying down the interest rate, you've now basically made the corridor huge, because you made that huge term insurance, this tiny bit of permanent insurance, so you're able to stuff a ton of cash in here. And if you're doing it very quickly, you're going to be able to grow the cash value accumulation. And depending on what kind of product it is, this is why I'm always careful around like universal life, because index universal life or universal life, my caution with that is if you don't pay it off really quickly, those do have internal rising insurance expenses. Usually, if you buy just a straight whole life product like the one we've discussed with you, the insurance expenses are fixed at the age you bought it. With a universal life cost, though, your insurance costs internal continue to rise, and universal life is this is why if you're going to do universal life, you need to like be done with it in like 10 to 15 years. But that's not the same
as an umbrella policy, right?
No.
Okay.
I don't even. I wouldn't even. I know you need an umbrella policy. You should talk to your property and casualty agent, and that is the.
What do you need an umbrella policy for?
I can't even speak intelligently.
No, you're fine.
The main thing is it's almost going to act like an insurance LLC, where it's going to like limit your liability. It's kind of a catch-all bullshit.
Yep. I see it a lot at work, so I'm just curious.
Yeah, if you have any type of real estate or big boy toys, I would highly recommend.
I actually learned that term because I didn't know what it was, but I learned it from your girl Tiffany Alashay, the budgeting coach, or the budgeting budgetista. She said that the umbrella policy was something that you needed. I get once you start making a certain amount of money. I don't know how much y'all making on the live right now, but I think you need to make a lot of money in order to get that
less than you think. It depends though. Like that umbrella policy, like it depends on if you're a small business owner. You know, if you've got a couple vehicles, if you've got like I'm a gentrified redneck, so if you come from my neck of the woods, you got like a quad and like
Shout out to Indiana.
Absolutely, and Kansas City.
But that makes sense though, because like when I was listening to someone talk about how they were using their whole life insurance policy to buy real estate, because they would flip a house, so they would get the profit from the house.
Yep.
And then they would put it into the whole life insurance fund. And maybe you can help me understand this. Maybe I need to ask her. But basically when you flip a house, you have to pay taxes on the profit, right? So when you put
depending on how long you held it, but
depending on if it's less than a year, you got to pay
short-term capital gains.
Short-term capital gains. But a life insurance policy, when you pull money out, it's non-taxable. So I'm trying to figure out.
You're technically not taking money out of it. You're borrowing money from the insurance company and pledging your cash value as collateral.
So is that a tax strategy? Like if you were to flip the house less than a year, so you have short-term capital gains, but then if you put it into the whole life insurance, the whole life insurance policy, do you avoid those capital gains taxes?
You're not going to avoid the capital gains on it.
It's no way to avoid.
We can get into how to do that too, but like you could do so on the life insurance. Number one, you need to make sure the policy has been funded properly, heavily, ideally probably for 3 to 5 to 6 years.
Okay.
Really, if you're asking like my general, I would tell people 10 plus is really bad.
Before you make a jump like that.
Exactly. Okay. Unless you are going to agree, unless you're like, hey, Devin, I've got $300,000. Can you structure a policy that'll be cash heavy over the next few years? There's ways we can do that for sure.
But you got to go into it having that plan.
Yeah, that you're going to heavy steroid this policy, which is really what we're talking about. These are customized steroided policies designed to be low drag, high speed, cash value accumulation. Because your options aren't just to borrow money from the insurance company and take that cash out, which that's the reason it's not taxable, because loans aren't taxable by the IRS. So you're loaning yourself the dollars, which I realize is semantics, but the IRS.
Wait a minute.
Well, welcome.
These jokes were written.
That's right.
By Shannon Sharp,
Cat Williams,
Joe Rogan.
Yeah, Monica I was like, we're going to talk about you and Kamala. And she didn't think the last part was that funny. She said during morning.
Well, since you brought it up.
Oh, Jesus. I thought we were talking about life insurance.